Micah Bell didn't sneak into the Vanderlinde gang. He walked in through the front door. In late 1898, Dutch Vanderlinde was in a bar in the Grizzlies when a deal went wrong and guns were drawn. Micah stepped in and saved his life. Just like that, Dutch brought him in. No trial period, no questions. Just Dutch's word that this man was worth having around. From the very first day, the gang felt it. Not one person welcomed him. Arthur didn't trust him, Hosea didn't trust him, John didn't trust him. But Dutch had spoken, and in the Vanderlinde gang, that was the end of the conversation. What nobody knew yet was exactly how bad it was going to get. It didn't take long for the first real glimpse. Micah ended up in jail in Strawberry after a drunken fight that left 2 men dead. Dutch sent Arthur to break him out, reluctantly. Arthur rode to Strawberry, got Micah out, and that should have been the end of it. But Micah wasn't done. He fought his way through town to get his revolvers back from a man named Norman, who had taken them after his arrest. He found Norman, he killed him. Then he killed Norman's wife, not because she was a threat, not because she stood in his way, just because she was there. Arthur had to shoot his way out of a town full of lawmen because of it. Afterward, he made sure Micah knew exactly how he felt. That was the moment Arthur stopped seeing Micah as a problem and started seeing him as something worse. Charles Smith didn't need long either. Micah made racist remarks about his bunkmates the very first night in camp, Charles among them. When Micah directed a slur at him later, Charles threw him to the ground on the spot. It was one of the few times anyone in the gang physically stood up to him, and even that didn't change anything. Dutch was still there. Micah stayed. Sadie Adler's reason went back even further, to the very first night she encountered the gang. When Dutch, Arthur, and Micah rode into the Adler ranch and cleared out the O'Driscolls, Sadie came up from the cellar to find Micah looting her home. She had just lost her husband. She pulled a knife on him. He knocked over a lantern. Dutch and Arthur had to pull them apart. That was her introduction to Micah Bell, and she never forgot it. Hosea Matthews never had one loud moment with Micah. He didn't need one. Hosea was the smartest man in the gang, and he saw through him from the beginning. When Micah brought Dutch the idea of robbing the Blackwater Ferry, a high-risk job that Hosea and Arthur both had serious doubts about, Dutch chose Micah's plan anyway. It turned into a massacre. The gang spent the rest of the story running from the consequences of that one decision. Then came Rhodes and Sean McGuire. Arthur, Micah, Bill, and Sean rode into town for what was supposed to be a straightforward job. It turned into an ambush. Sean was shot dead in the street. Arthur came out of it furious, blaming Micah and Bill's carelessness for getting Sean killed. Another name added to the list of things Micah had cost them. John Marston's moment was the most personal of all. During the robbery of a train carrying Army payroll, John got shot and fell off. Dutch said he would go back for him. He rode out with Micah, Joe, and Javier. They found John, and they left him there. When they returned to camp, Dutch and Micah told everyone that John was already dead by the time they arrived. It was a lie. John survived, barely, and when he came back, he told everyone exactly what happened. Micah had convinced Dutch to leave him. That wasn't recklessness. That was a choice. By the time the gang reached Beaver Hollow, everything was falling apart. Arthur had learned from Agent Milton that Micah had been feeding information to the Pinkertons. He came back to camp and said it in front of everyone. A standoff formed. Arthur and John on one side, Dutch and Micah on the other. Susan Grimshaw, who had kept that gang together through sheer force of will for years, stepped forward and pointed her shotgun at Micah. She was the only one who actually tried to end it. Micah shot her while she was distracted. Susan Grimshaw, who had survived everything the Vanderlinde gang had been through, died in her own camp because she was the only one willing to act on what everyone already knew. And Dutch still didn't move against Micah. That's the answer. It wasn't that the gang didn't see what Micah was. Arthur saw it in Strawberry. Charles felt it the first night in camp. Sadie knew it before she even learned his name. Hosea saw it before the Blackwater job ever happened. John felt it bleeding on the ground after being left to die. They all knew, every single one of them. But as long as Dutch stood behind Micah, the gang's own code, the thing they had all built their lives around, was the very thing that kept him protected.
Micah didn't survive because he fooled everyone. He survived because the one person whose opinion mattered had already made his choice, and by the time that changed, it was too late for most of them.